This is Wendy Halley, and you're listening to Lucid Cafe. Hey, thanks for joining me. I hope you're doing well, hanging in there, finding ways to enjoy yourself despite the various challenges on planet Earth right now. I hope today's episode will present a little reprieve from life as well as an invitation to explore your relationship with your intuition. But first, one of the best ways to connect with your personal power when you're feeling powerless is to become your own shaman. And now you can do that from the comfort of your own home by enrolling in the Become Your Own Shaman online course. It's a self-paced experiential introductory course that gives you the groundwork to start a personal shamanic practice. The foundation of the course is based, with permission, on my understanding of the indigenous Hawaiian spiritual worldview that was shared with me during the early phase of my apprenticeship. So we'll explore subjects like the nature of reality, the nature of the self and how it relates to consciousness, and you'll learn the mechanics of how to safely and easily enter a shamanic trance state using sound. Then we'll dive into some fundamental experiential exercises, introducing you to the shamanic realms and two of your personal spirit guides. My goal in creating this course was to make it as affordable and user-friendly as possible. You have lifetime access to the content, which means you can revisit the material anytime you like. The course incorporates all I've learned teaching introductory shamanic workshops over the last 20 years, including ways to address the common areas where new practitioners can get a little stuck. Are you ready to take the first step toward becoming your own shaman? Visit lucidpathwellness.com or use the link in the show notes to enroll and start your journey toward deepening your connection to the unseen world and yourself. So the thing about the unseen world is that it's right there at all times, pregnant with information and insights and help, just waiting for you to tap into it. Today's guest, author and spiritual teacher Happy Ali, has shared a whole slew of accessible techniques and examples to help you connect with the unseen world in his new book, The Intuition Bible: How and Why to Tap into Your Inner Wisdom. In our conversation, Happy covers a lot of ground, including a helpful technique you can use to jumpstart your relationship with your intuition. Happy has a degree in psychology from UCLA. He's a prophetic dreamer, a certified master NLP practitioner, certified master clinical hypnotherapist, and host of the podcast Happy Insights. Happy's spiritual journey began in 1995 when he dedicated his life to the exploration of metaphysical disciplines after a near-death experience inspired a dramatic awakening. Now, Happy teaches and shares the subconscious manifestation methodology he created globally. Please enjoy my conversation with Happy Ali. Happy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Wendy. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I think this could be a very intriguing conversation. I'm hoping it'll be really intriguing for the folks listening, or the one person who listens, or however many people. I'm just kidding.
You never know. You never know.
No, it's so you have written a book called The Intuition Bible: How and Why to Tap into Your Inner Wisdom. Let's start real basic. How do you define
I
intuition?
love that question.
Everybody knows the word, but it's kind of ineffable. How do you describe it?
I know a lot of people always say, I'm intuitive. I said, what does that mean? They're
Exactly.
like, well, I just kind of know stuff. I said, well, my definition of intuition is any information that does not originate from the logical mind. Now, it could come from your gut feeling, it could come from other dimensions, it could come from other layers of reality, it could come from sources that feel like they are your external world, like patterns or things that are just happening in your life. But if you're able to process it in a different way that's not the typical route that the logical mind uses, and the same level of calculation that the logical mind tends to do when it comes to conclusions, that's what I call intuition. And my definition of intuition is a lot broader than most people's, because most people just think it's a gut feeling and it's like when you knew something in advance and that's it. And that is definitely not my definition of it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you too. I think it's pretty broad. That's why I wanted to ask you what you thought of it, especially after reading your book, because you cover so much ground in your book. And I'm hoping it's crazy inviting for people who have wanted to open these doors and maybe haven't tried. So, yeah, let's dive in a little bit more here. First of all, let me just say I love that you call yourself a skeptical mystic.
It's very true.
That's awesome. Now, here's the tricky part, I think, when people start exploring their intuitive gifts. And that is, how do you discern between true intuitive guidance and wishful thinking?
Well, intuition doesn't always come in pretty packages, first of all. So sometimes wishful thinking only comes in pretty packages. But when you learn to communicate with the what I call the gatekeeper of intuition, which is your subconscious mind, and you learn the language of it, it becomes a lot more clearer when the message is coming from within. But an important thing to note is, first of all, if the information is good and helpful, and it's not restricting you, it's liberating you, it's making you feel free and making you feel good in life, go with it, whether it's your logical mind or whether it's wishful thinking, because sometimes wishful thinking leads to manifestations that wouldn't exist if you didn't have wishful thinking. So if you're feeling good, go with it. Worst comes to worst, you fail, and then you pick up where you left off and you start over again, because life isn't about end results, it's about the journey. But I think that what I wanted to really convey in this book and in my teachings is that the subconscious mind is the gatekeeper. So basically, our conscious mind is what is listening to me right now and it's hearing certain words, and it's actually cherry picking certain words that make more sense to you and align with your beliefs. And there's a lot of information that is coming at you through all your senses in every moment, millions of bits of information that is coming to you. It's being processed by your subconscious in every single moment of your life, that is being deleted, generalized, and distorted, but still stored. And only out of the entire 2 million or a couple of million, only 150 something or around that, 150 individual bits of data is being processed per moment. So about 2 million is being deleted, but stored in your subconscious since the moment of your birth. So if you think about it, you have an entire database of information that is far beyond what you think you know. And if you just learn to communicate with that aspect of you, just think about how much more help you can have in your life, how much more data you have access to. That's not even supernatural or woo woo or weird or metaphysical. It's just plain old science. But the subconscious does not speak in the same language as we do. It speaks in symbols and pictures and feelings, and that's what you have to kind of get used to learning. And once you learn the techniques, just trying to tap into your subconscious mind, then you can change your frequency to higher levels of intelligence, like your soul or higher beings or multidimensional beings, and be able to tap into those frequencies and receive information that goes beyond time and space. Because once you learn to tap in, you have access to worlds that are not defined by the laws of physics. But first thing you got to do is learn the language of your subconscious mind, because everybody has been programmed differently and has a different way of communicating. Your mother might have been someone who was abusive and wore red lipstick, and mine was someone who was lovely and wore red lipstick. And I see red lipstick and it will mean something completely different to me. And when my subconscious is trying to show me someone abusive or loving, it might show me the red lipstick or it might show you the red lipstick. So you have to kind of learn, and that's why I encourage just really giving it some time to learn. And it's an art, it's a craft that you have to refine. So
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it definitely is its own language, isn't it? And it's worth putting the time into deciphering the language because, like you said, it's such rich territory and it could make life easier. And that's kind of what you're suggesting in your book is like, why not make your life easier and play around with these tools?
I always think that we have a very few options when it comes to making decisions. It's basically what's out in the world, what the news is telling us, what our family is telling us, what social media is telling us. But we have this wonderful friend which lives inside of us that knows what's best for us. And it does have an agenda, and its agenda is your well being. And if you learn how to communicate with this inner version of you that has access to so much and it has your best interest at heart. So if you get to communicate with that and have that be added to the options of choices that you have when you're making decisions in everyday moments, then life can become a lot richer and you can play out scenarios in your mind or ask your intuition, hey, if I take this step, is it better than if I take this? Will it have a better outcome? Is it more aligned with my soul's purpose? Is this a good decision for me right now? Should I be backing out? There's so many things that we don't consider because we don't see the big picture because we're so caught in the this what I call the physical trance. We're in a trance of the physical world and very confined to the limitations of the five senses. And when we kind of extract ourselves from that trance and we're able to see the world from a bigger picture, we can have much better advice. And if you do make mistakes, you do them more willingly, knowing that, hey, I do want to have this negative experience. I do want to date this person that I feel like is totally not right for me or whatever it is, but you do it knowingly for the experience and you're not going in it blindly.
Well, that's an interesting take on on making a not so healthy choice. But yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be cool if we could all get to that place where we're able to discern like, well, this probably isn't the best thing for me, but
I do
fuck it,
that
I'm
all
going to
the
do it
time.
anyway. Just because I want to grow in response to this, or I want to see where it takes me,
I do
or
it all the time because I'm an intuitive and I am a prophetic dreamer. So I think I dream things in advance and know the outcome of a lot of stuff, or I can feel in my gut that I'm not supposed to make this move. But the experience is so inviting that intriguing and I
intriguing.
just
Yeah,
say to myself, hey, I'm only going to be on this planet once as this person, and I just want to experience
I
this
gotta.
one little thing. And if I have to backtrack, I'm going to backtrack. So you will forego your clear intuition many times unless you are not human. But it's good to have it as an extra option. It's almost like having an extra channel on your television to choose from. So I do say, with all the amazing knowledge, nobody follows their own advice all the time.
Right. And it's kind of refreshing how you're describing it because it takes the pressure off. Like you don't have to get it right all the
Life is
time.
boring when you get it right all the time.
What would be the point of living a life if you got it right all the time?
I decided to quit drinking alcohol and just be really clear-headed for the last 10 months and just be my purest vibration and just be just the best me possible. And I didn't realize that even though I didn't really truly have hangovers or I wasn't really going crazy or doing dumb stuff, it was creating an ebb and flow in my life of energy, like energy storage, energy overextension. There was so many things that were happening. There was a little bit of drama in my life energetically, and it was fueling my
Hmm.
creativity, and my creativity was through the roof. So when I became sober, and I love being sober, it took me a long time to figure out how to be creative again
Huh.
because I was so even and I didn't know how to create, and life just felt too good. And creativity is born from, and transformation is born from a little bit of challenges, discomfort. And so now I don't really shy away from discomfort so much as I used to. And I just kind of like welcome it and say, hey, I'm so connected to my higher self. I'm so connected to this universe. And I know that I'm protected and I am supported. And no matter what, I am safe and I want to experience life. So I'm here for the ride.
That's such a key point you're bringing up, I think, at least in my own experiences. And I think it's worth chatting about a little bit more because ultimately what you're talking about is a big trust fall, right? I mean, it's like trusting that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. That's such a hard thing to get to because how do you know when you can trust? How does anyone know when they can trust that they're going to be okay, even if it goes horribly south, it goes
Well,
really
I have to
badly?
be honest. Like, if you have really good intentions and your vibration is clear and clean, and you are not someone who's just, negative in general, and you're positive and you find that alignment with your soul and you feel connected, then things do work out, even if they fall apart. There's always that light at the end of the tunnel. But sometimes, if you're someone who's really negative and somebody who just is not feeling connected to the world, things will go south and you'll get stuck down there for a really long time. But you're there for a reason, so you can learn to crawl yourself on your way out of that hole. And you'll stay there. And some people die in there and then they have to be born again so they can earn those muscles and learn how to get their butt out of that hole. So it's really important to know that when I say everything always works out, generally everything does work out as long as you maintain your integrity and your energetic integrity, which means that you got to always feel connected, find the bigger picture, and align with your soul. So when you do that, then you do have a safety net that when you fall, there's going to be a wonderful net underneath to catch you. And then someone will just show up out of the blue and kind of bring a ladder for you to climb your way back up again. But that's only for people who really do make an effort to be positive, be connected, and align with their soul's frequency. But there's nothing wrong with people digging themselves into a hole and staying there for a long time until they figure out how to come out of it, because everything in our lives is there to teach us something. And once we learn the lesson we're supposed to learn, or once we grow the way we're supposed to grow, then the universe will not waste its resources keeping you in that scenario. The universe has to use resources to present you with any scenario, whether it's positive or negative. So the moment that a scenario is no longer useful and productive, it has to dissipate. So the good and the bad. That's why when you finally learn a lesson, when you finally transform, old stuff just falls off and goes away. And now you're exposed to new stuff.
Right, right. Yeah. No, that's a great distinction. I think what I was talking about too, from the trust perspective, is this idea that you can trust even if you screw up pretty badly or you get stuck in that hole, that it's still okay. And that's kind of what you're saying, that maybe
And
the
I
trust
wanted
isn't
really
there, but
to say, because I work with a lot of clients and some are going through major depression or having a really hard time. When you're in that state, you're feeling trapped and you're feeling worthless and you can't move. And the thing that I always encourage my clients to do is get in a non-judgmental zone when it comes to your depression. Say, hey, I have every reason to be depressed. I'm not going to judge myself. My life is falling apart. Everything is falling apart. So I'm going to give myself permission to be depressed. And that automatically releases some resistance and helps you get out of it.
mm,
But most people, when they're depressed, they judge themselves from being depressed. They are mad at themselves for not being able to get out of bed. They're mad at themselves for being in this hole to begin with. And that just adds fuel to the fire and they just get stuck in further. So,
mm,
non-judgmental way, whether you're trying to learn intuition or whether you're trying to crawl your way out of depression, non-judgment is the key thing to remember, because that's the way that we can live life from a broader perspective.
It sounds like you're kind of talking about acceptance too.
Absolutely.
Really does seem to be a key component to healing is you can't really move forward until you accept
Absolutely.
where you're at.
And just be okay with it, you know? I know we're not even talking about intuition, but this is about intuition too. So I had a client and she was having these horrible back pains, and I believe that intuition comes from the gut and the whole body and even the your external world, the universe, the people around you. So all that's intuition, but the body is really one of the main places that intuition comes through, or your messengers. It's your loudest messengers. It's because it's the one that you can't ignore. And my client had this horrible back pain, and I told her to lay down in a position, and she said, "I'm going to lay here, but it's going to hurt." I said, "Listen, just find a comfortable position." She's like, "I can't even lay down." I said, "Find a position because we're going to do this exercise and you have to do it. And I want you to listen to your body." And her back pain was bad. And I said, "Just pay attention to it. You do everything to not pay attention to it. It's your intuition giving you a message." I said, "What is it trying to say?" She's like, "I have no idea." I said, "Well, just pay attention to it for a while." I said, "Imagine if it's a kid crying and it really wants your attention." And she sat there, and within I don't know, probably like 5 minutes, and she said, "The pain is gone."
Hmm.
And I thought, well, why? And she's like, "How is that possible?" I said, "Well, when you listen to someone and they're done screaming, they're eventually going to stop screaming." I said, "Don't worry, it will come back as soon as you're distracted again and you stop listening to it. But for now, the lesson is there's messages coming through you." And soon, the woman who said that she had no idea what the back pain was about had an epiphany that said, "Hey, I think the reason I'm having back pain is this." And I thought, wow, I thought you didn't know. Yeah,
There you have it, huh? Yeah, I've always kind of thought that symptoms are there to get our attention. They have a story to tell, so it's about listening to them and what story do they have to tell you?
to torture you.
And that gets me back to the question I wanted to ask around the friend you referenced. We all have a friend. And to you, who
Well,
is that
it's
friend?
basically, it starts with my friend being my subconscious, who's the one driving the car while I'm not paying attention, all the way to my spirit guides, my higher self. And I clump them all into one, to a support system that goes as far as God. And those are all clumped into one for me because they come through my inner senses. And because they come through my inner senses, sometimes I have a clear understanding of who is speaking, and sometimes I don't. But I do know that as long as my energy is clear and clean and deliberate, then whatever's coming through me, giving me guidance, is smarter than me and has my best interest at heart. And that's why I call it a friend, but it's really a plural. It's friends and supports and all that
Friends,
stuff.
yeah. Invisible
Yeah, so
friends,
but
yeah.
I just call it one because it feels like it all comes through one avenue. I mean, I have stuff coming through my dreams, my gut feelings. And then there's times when I get to hear stuff I don't want to hear and I don't like it. I have prophetic dreams, and one of them told me I was going to have a son, even though I was gay and had no intentions of having a child, and I was single, and I ended up with a child a year and a half later with my own biological child. And it was a boy in the dream, and it was a boy in real life. And I magically, basically, just life happened, and it happened. And then 4 years later, I had a dream that somebody died, and then I lost my son and he died. And it was, so these are prophetic dreams that are my intuition kind of guiding me on a path, and then sometimes warning me of something that's about to happen.
Mm,
But as soon as my son died, he kept showing up in my dreams again and helping me through the grieving process, and then telling me I was going to have another child, which to me was, what the heck? Like, why would I do this when this led me to the best 4.5 years of my life and then the worst pain in the world?
tragic, yeah.
And then I was a walking zombie, but because I was visited by him so often through dreams and sometimes within my body when I was awake, I had an advantage over other grievers, which was very good because I got to talk to him and we get to have full on conversations. But then he showed me this little curly haired boy and said, "This is your new son." And I thought, gosh. But then I held that baby and I fell in love with him. And I was a student at the time. I didn't have any money because you need 100 grand or more to make a baby if you're gay. The donor, the surrogate, the lawyers, all the hospital bills, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And sure enough, a year and a half after he died, I had my twins, and they're 7.5 years old now. And of course, one of them has the curly hair, and I got to meet them right before they were born because I kind of made a deal with God and said, "Hey, I'm not having another kid if you don't promise that they're gonna live longer than me." And then the day that they were prematurely born, the morning of, I had the dream that I met both of my children as adults during their high school graduation, and I got to see their personality. And really, they were like introducing Dario, introducing Cyrus, who were the kids' names. And the phone woke me up and they said, "Hey, your surrogate is gone into labor, so get your butt over here."
Ooh, I got chills on that one. What a beautiful story. Yeah, I mean, you talk about it in your book, and it's freaking heartbreaking what you went through. And to get that dream prophesizing what was about to happen, I think that happens to a lot of people when they're children. They're wide open psychically, right? And they're getting all this information, and some of it's not pleasant and it scares them. And so they shut everything down. They shut their ability to perceive down because why would I want to open that up if I can perceive that bad
Absolutely.
things are
And
going to
I'm gonna
happen?
just add another layer to that. So a lot of people just assume that there's intentional reasons why we close off our intuition. But because we come to this earth to survive and to live and to make sure there's food and make sure that we're healthy and we're not walking into danger, we are designed in a way that our five senses have to be louder than our intuition. And when I say louder, I mean not even close in range. One is a tiny whisper and the other one's a yell,
Right.
because the five senses are very important for our survival, and the intuition is more important for us to thrive.
Hmm.
So a lot of times people's intuitions in the beginning, the kids' survival is based on their parents. So they have the luxury of having intuition, and they're still connected to where they came from.
Yep.
So as soon as they start having to take care of themselves, they have to be more aware of their surroundings. And that's when the intuition, also another reason why intuition disappears around that time. And also parents, they don't believe in it, or they talk them out of it. And then later, as you become more grounded and you become more curious and you're more, I don't know, you're just more stable, then you have time to quiet your mind long enough to hear the whispers. And that's when intuition can kick itself back in.
Right. So it's kind of a luxury
Yeah, it's definitely a luxury.
to explore this territory. Those are great points. Ah, what was I going to say? I was going to say, yeah, I think I was just going to touch on how deeply subtle opening intuitive doors is, and that's kind of what you're focusing on in your book. So, what if we sort of shifted now and talked a little bit about the different ways to tune in, like from the beginner standpoint, and then you also referenced once you get the hang of it, then you can start opening more cosmic doors and touch base with higher frequencies or however you want to describe it.
I always suggest starting really small with a yes or no answer, which is actually my favorite thing because I use that more often than anything else. And one of my favorite things to do is to check my gut for a yes or no answer. This is really for a basic beginner and someone who's not overly logical, because logical people tend to not pay attention to their feelings. But not that it's not accessible to logical people, but the more aware you are with your feelings, the faster you're going to get this. And most people get it right away. So what I always tell people is close your eyes, and you always want to close your eyes because when you close your eyes, you're slowing down your brain waves, and the inner voice comes through in much slower frequency, and the slower brain waves are a better match to it, so you can receive it a little bit more. So when you close your eyes, I want you to think of a question that you know the answer is yes to, and ask that question. Like say, is the sun outside or is it night outside? Whatever it is when you're listening to this. So you ask yourself that question that you already know the answer to, but don't give yourself the answer. Scan your upper body from your neck to your pelvis. And some people feel it in their hands or somewhere else. Just scan your body and see what part of your body tingles or lights up or contracts or constricts or just feels better, whatever sensation that comes up. And then do it a couple of more times with a couple of more questions that are still a yes question. Then do the same thing with a no question and ask that same question in different ways over and over that you know the answer to be no to, and then see where it lights up in your body. And the more you do that, the more you realize that whenever something is a yes, this part of your body does something. And whenever the answer is no, the other part of your body does something. And it's usually in the stomach, chest area for some people. Some people it's in their hands. You never know. Mine is very specific. And it's important to know that once you've mastered that, then you can ask a question. Is this decision aligned with my soul purpose? Or is this something that I should be doing? And then you get an immediate response. And after a while, you just do it without even knowing you're doing it. Because once you feel it, you recognize it, then you act on it maybe, or you don't act on it. It's really up to you. So that's one of the ways. But if you're overly logical, because I have twins and one is super empathic and emotional and one's totally mental. Like he thinks a lot. He's very logical. Everything's pre-calculated. Like everything is just very, very pre-planned in his mind.
How old are they now?
7.5.
Okay.
So I just did my book signing and I had them there and I had them do a demonstration on stage. And of course, one of them got the feelings and he exactly knew where it was. And the other one just was like, so did you feel anything? And he's like, barely. So, and so for those people, I encourage other methods. There's a lot of different methods, but you start with learning what works for you because we have inner senses that match our outer senses. Like your sight has clairvoyance, which is the inner sense of sight, or your physical body touch is clairsentience. So once you figure out which one's your superpower, and there's meditations to do that, to figure out which one your superpower is, then start doing exercises that are more related to the aspect of you that's more comfortable coming through. And when you start doing that, then you recognize the yes or no questions. I love yes or no questions because they're practical and you can go through life and say, hey, should I call this person? That's such a basic thing. Or sometimes when I only carry cash with me, I only have like 100, well, now it's going to be like a $200 to go to the grocery store. I always play this game where I don't want to be a dollar over or under. And when I'm picking up the items towards the end, in the beginning, I just pick whatever I need. But at the end, I'm like, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And I'm always within a dollar's range. And I always tell the cashier to up the stakes. And and it was so funny because last time the lady was like, no, 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 this is not going to be $70. Well, I said, yes, it is. And then of course it was $54. And then as soon as she was doing the final thing, I'm like, wait, I forgot the meat. So I had to go grab the meat and put it, and it was $70 and like 10 cents or something.
Told you.
But these are, yeah, but these are different ways to practice and learn that there's a part of you that knows more than you. And that when you learn to trust it, then you can trust it with bigger stuff. But in the beginning, you want to start with small things that don't really matter, like the checkout, like what time is it right now? Like what time is it? Before you look at at your watch, just ask what time it is. Do stuff where you kind of play and you start exercising a new muscle and you start telling your mind that you care enough to tap into this well of resources. And when you do that, it stops filtering out that noise and allowing you to have better access to your inner self. And it starts with just being able to tell the clock, or it comes as a full download, like my book came. My book was not even supposed to be here. I was writing a different book. I said a little prayer, went to sleep, woke up with a full book.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, the book came, it was supposed to be 15 chapters and it turned to 29, I believe. But it was an inspiration and I had to follow it, but it was not what I was supposed to do. I'd already paid somebody else to do this publishing process for the other book.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was this book, the Heartlands, and I'd already paid an amount to have editors and all this stuff, and then the Intuition Bible showed up, and I thought, well, I'm gonna just abandon that because that felt right for me. And I said, but you have to find your own publisher. You have to do all the work, and I'm not doing anything. So if it's my inner being giving me this message and not my logical mind that had me do the other stuff, then you need to give me full support. And the book wrote itself. Everyone said I was not going to be able to find a publisher. The first publisher I submitted to, which happened to publish The Power of Now and Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, it was a big publisher and it put me in the same world as these amazing authors. A week after I submitted the proposal, they sent me an offer and an advance, and I didn't have to.
It's amazing, right?
It was effortless. Everything has been effortless because I listened to my inner voice
Hmm.
and I trusted it enough to abandon my current plans.
Those are really, really key points. I want to touch on something that you referenced a couple minutes ago, and that is the importance of starting with something that's unimportant or neutral. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you shouldn't just dive in and intuit something that is really meaningful to you or important to you?
Well, especially if you don't believe that you're an intuitive in the very beginning and you're going in with a lot of pressure, you are going to go in there expecting to fail. So there's a lot of resistance. Because when you say, I am going to do this and I'm going to learn this thing and I'm going to talk to spirit guides right now, I mean, some people will have that experience because they're just on the precipice of that experience and it's just about to happen. But a lot of people don't believe that they have intuitive abilities because their subconscious mind has been deleting all their intuitive insight. So when you go in and treat it as play with something light and you just keep practicing and practicing, practicing until part of you says, hey, maybe I do have access to something greater. Or another thing to do is just go back into your past and think about times when things did feel like intuition and it worked out and everyone said it was a coincidence. So you kind of have to make yourself believe in yourself because if you don't believe it, it's basically blocking your progress. So when I tell people to go in and treat it as play, and I tell people to just go tap into their subconscious, there's a very little resistance. And then if I say go tap into your spirit guide or aliens from another planet, when you do that, there's a lot of resistance. But if I say, hey, there's a lot of information in your subconscious that you're not aware of. For example, if I'm talking to somebody, my subconscious is very aware of their body language and how they're behaving.
Mm,
And people communicate 55% through their body and only 7% through their words. But what most people do is pay attention to the 7%.
yeah.
And they walk away so excited, so happy that they met somebody and now they're going to fall in love with them and all this stuff. But if they tap into the subconscious will say, hey,
Red flags.
yeah, the body language said no and don't listen to that. So there's so much benefit from just the subconscious alone, and it's science. So you can have less skepticism around it. And then when you master that, then start doing the big stuff. If you want to just jump into it and do the big stuff, go for it. But I just think that it's too much pressure. For me, it was too much pressure. It took me years to consider myself even a prophetic dreamer. It had to be the birth of my son wasn't enough, the death of my son, then all of a sudden I was the family prophet,
Mm,
prophetic dream. And then after that, still to this day, I have a death dream and everyone tells me that I'm crazy. I mean, not anymore because it has a timer. If I have a death dream, it's 2 months, a week, give or take, and then somebody dies and it's it. But I still have an aunt who still says, oh, I don't know. That dream, I said, was within 2 months. It was a female. It was this. She's like, I don't know. But when it came to the last death in our family, which was my grandmother, who actually gave me the gift of prophetic dreams, I had the dream, and we all kind of knew, but we would just even I started justifying that it was just fake. But I had like 5 more dreams saying she was dying, and then I would not accept it because it was my grandmother,
mm.
and I saw her dead. I saw so many things, and this one I was just like, it just means she went to the hospital or she's gonna come back. But I cried, of course, after the first dream, and I told my kids, I said, "Hey, your great grandma's gonna die. Let's prepare for it in 2 months." And then I deleted it. And then the day of, now I'm not a clairvoyant, so I don't see things. But this is a really important thing to know about intuition. When there's a necessity, other senses will kick in if you're ignoring your usual ones. So I was ignoring my usual dream sense that I have.
Mm.
And the moment that my grandma died, I was in another country. I got this feeling that I had to close my eyes. And I wasn't asleep. I just closed my eyes and I saw this bird fall out of the sky, clear as day. And it was dying. It was as if it was shot and it was just like flapping its wings. And I watched it die.
Oh.
And I just opened my eyes because I was awake. And I thought, well, that's never happened before. Like, what the heck does that mean? Something bad is happening. And I wrote it in my journal because I have to write it because I need proof because I am a skeptical mystic. Um, and yeah, and then 2 hours later, I got a text from my mom that said, "Hey, I'm not sure what it means, but I just got a text that grandma died." So I was like, "Well, I just had that thing," and it was funny because my coffee maker just broke down, like everything broke down all at once. And I thought, wow, like something's up in the air. So there's always something. And I know I'm talking about death, but there's a lot of positive stuff out there, like the birth of my children, or just hearing, like finding out about my cousin's wife getting pregnant and ruining her surprise. I was like, "You're getting pregnant." She's like, "No, I'm not." I said, "Yes, you are. You were pregnant." And then like a month later, she's like, "We're pregnant. We've been trying. We were keeping it a secret." I was like, "Well, now you know." So it was kind of like there's a lot of good stuff that happens, but the ones that I think that are the most helpful are the ones where you're at a crossroads and you're not sure, or you're not sure of someone's intentions. But there's one thing I do want to say. There are a lot of reasons we misinterpret our intuition.
Great. This is a yes.
And I devoted an entire chapter to it. And one of the greatest, most important ones is when you have an agenda. When you have a desired outcome and you don't want any other outcome, like, for example, me not wanting my grandmother to die, you will literally misinterpret everything in as many ways as you can, even if you're a total expert. If you have an agenda, if you have a compulsion towards something,
Mm.
well, you will absolutely misinterpret information. If you have indigestion and you're using your stomach as a source of information, or if you have anxiety or nerves and you're using your stomach as a source of information, you're not going to get it. You're going to have to use other tools. So that's why the book is written the way that it is, so that it covers everything. I wanted it to be like a textbook. That's why I call it the Bible as well, although it was a joke as well, because the Bible says, follow these rules, and mine just says, go within and find your own rules. But the Bible meant that,
I
this
like that message better.
thank you. But I really wanted the book to be comprehensive and something that leaves very little room for misinterpretation and blockages, and really remove those blockages.
It definitely does. And from what I'm gathering, if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're really suggesting and inviting people to do is to develop a relationship with themselves and their intuitive abilities as opposed to like a master slave kind of power differential. It's like you're working on the same team.
Yeah.
And then touching on the agenda piece too, we're living in the age of confirmation bias. We want we we want things to just prove what we want them to prove.
And there's enough information out there to prove it. It doesn't matter what you want to believe in, Google it.
You'll find it, absolutely. Either Dr. Google or Mr. Google will tell you.
Absolutely.
And everybody has cancer.
Everything is going to cause cancer.
Yep.
And it's really important to acknowledge that there is an aspect of us that AI cannot replicate, and it's our inner world. And our inner world is actually more developing now and more accessible to us, I think, because now there's AI. So because there's AI is now becoming so prevalent, a lot of our brain power is no longer necessary the way that it used to be before.
Huh, that's an interesting point.
And now, and as above, so below. So, whatever happens on the physical plane also happens in the spiritual plane. So, as we're developing this supercomputer that has access to so much, a spiritual version of it has to become also more accessible. That's just, Edgar Casey said it. It's part of the just one of the laws that everyone says, as above, so below. So, if AI is happening, that means, and we have access to it now, because AI has been around for a while, but our physical access for regular people, if we have access to that now, then there is a version of that that's an inner world AI that we also will have more access to. And we do have more access to. And there are people like me who are getting downloads to teach people how to work this system or work this program or access this infinite well of knowledge that really does feel like AI, just a spiritual AI.
Do you feel like it's always been there? It's just that as a species, we've gotten far away from it?
Yes and no, because of course it's always been there. Everything has always been there. But the need and access changes as life goes by and as our society changes. But right now, our human species, the current modern civilization, is going through a huge shift. So this is kind of like well, aside from the fifth dimension opening up and all the woo-woo stuff, our mind is going through a huge shift because evolution never stops. And we might have been this evolved and spiritually before, but then we pushed the reset button somehow, somewhere like 11,000 years ago or something. And after the pyramids, and then we kind of started from scratch again. And right now is the time of our spiritual evolution, of our awakening. And it's been happening for a long time. It's not like it just happened. And right now it's becoming more accessible thanks to things like TikTok, which people frown upon. Because of TikTok, you can talk about multidimensional reality to just about any 20-year-old and talk about aliens or whatever the heck you want to talk about, law of attraction. And they already have a premise for it because it's being spread so wide. But all the teachers, all the wise sages had one thing to say, and that was to go within. There's not a single one that didn't say that, unless it was a false prophet or a false guru that said, listen to me. Everyone said, go within. And I feel that because everyone says go within, my only message could possibly be a step-by-step guide to going within for people
Mm,
and the stepping stone towards the evolution of our spiritual evolution. So I feel like my book was presented to me as a stepping stone for people of all walks of life to be able to just take their first step towards something greater and live a life that they're meant to live, feeling supported by the universe in ways that they never thought they would be supported, and have actionable steps that would lead them toward a happier, more fulfilled life. Because, and not feel alone. Gosh, to live life not feeling alone is so amazing. So I have to say that alone is incredible.
yes, to have invisible friends or a friend is really comforting. And it's nice to know that you have support all the time if you choose to connect with it. And that's what you're inviting folks to do. So, what are the ways in which you work with people?
So have one-on-one coaching that I used to do with people, and I've kind of stopped doing that unless somebody really wants it. But I really have discovered group coaching really fun when it comes to intuition because you get to watch other people stumble and fall, and some people succeed and they give you hope. So that's one of my favorite things to do. Of course, I have courses that are online and people can just take the courses on their own. But when it comes to single person, like a transformation, you're going through something, then of course I work with them one on one. I do hypnotherapy. I have this incredible. This is one thing you can't do in group coaching, which is I do this hypnotherapy. I call it intuition activation, higher self connection hypnotherapy. And you bring me four questions, and I take you down to the deepest layers that you allow me to take you through hypnosis. And then I ask your higher self or inner self or subconscious those questions that you brought me, and you answer your own questions. And you get the questions answered from the highest version of you with a bigger perspective. Then I have the higher self show you the future if you follow your own advice. And
Ooh.
you get to be in that moment and withdraw and extract the vibration of it and cement it in your body. So when you come back, you can start manifesting that life. So that's my most successful single session that I do. But I am some of the coaching online, the group coaching sold out. So I need to set up some new ones. But it's more fun. I like 10 or 20 people just to have fun with me. And when you tell your subconscious that it's important enough for you to put 3 hours a week aside to explore your intuitive abilities, that's already telling your subconscious that this is important for me. Or if you pay money for a course, it means I value this, therefore I want to see results. And then the filtration system that usually filters out the intuitive stuff starts putting stuff in there. So I think a regular practice is imperative if you want to see results.
Do you use the word discipline?
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I just hate that word because I'm not very disciplined, but yeah.
Well, yeah, nobody really
I
likes
am
that
so not
word,
disciplined. Yes.
but it is kind of an
No,
ingredient,
no,
right?
it's
I mean,
absolutely the
if
best
you
word ever.
stick
I'm
to
just
it,
scared to
yeah.
use it. I'm just so not disciplined. I'm so bad about it.
You have prophetic death dreams, but you don't want to use the word discipline.
No, it is a discipline, and you do need to practice. And like anything else, it's an art. So the better,
Yeah.
the more you do it, the better it gets. And doing it with other people really does help than doing it alone, because sometimes when you do it alone, it just feels like you're stuck. But if you do the exercises, then you really do see some results, and sometimes you get really motivated to keep going. And but if you find yourself that you need a community, then you can go to my website, which is happyinsights.net, or my Instagram, which is Happy Insights Official, where my links are, and sign up for one of the courses. It's really fun. It's just 3 hours of fun once a week for 12 weeks. And it's just like you build a family, and it's just really fun.
All right. That sounds great. I will put links in
Thank
the
you.
show notes. Happy, thank you so much for coming
Of
on.
course. Thank you so much for having me, Wendy. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree. Connecting with your intuition should be fun. You can sign up for one of Happy's online classes, listen to his podcast, or get a copy of his book by visiting happyinsights.net. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please let others know about Lucid Cafe. The only way to gain any traction in the podcast world is by word of mouth. So recommending the show to others who might be interested is crazy helpful. Really appreciated. All right, that does it for this episode. Next time, how to ignite your soul and unleash your potential. So I hope your day is a great one. Until next time.